Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's time for another review of the latest X-Men 97 episode, Episode 7, Bright Eyes. There's a lot to unpack in this episode, and it is definitely one where I have mixed feelings about. Certain scenes and parts of the narrative were great, others were not. So let's get into it. Episode 7 starts with Gambit's funeral. Now, a lot of you commented that you believe he'll be back as a member of Apocalypse's Four Horsemen, but I have to say, this seemed a little bit more permanent. Except for Rogue, it looked like everyone was there, including Kurt Wagner, aka Nightcrawler, who presided over the ceremony. Now, the X-Men have to reconcile another loss, another death, and this is becoming very common for them to the point where you have to wonder how strong mentally they can continue to be as things progress. I mean, Professor X, to them, he's a loss. Madeline Pryor, she's a loss to Scott and a trust issue for the rest of them. Baby Nathan, a loss. Everyone on Genosha, massive loss. Gambit and Magneto, incredible personal loss. Storm leaving, and that has to feel like a death in its own way. So the X-Men have suffered so much, and like I said, you have to wonder who exactly is going to snap first, because when you add it all up, it can be kind of overwhelming. Now, Rogue was absent from the funeral because she is processing her grief differently. She wants answers from Gyrich and Trask, and she really earns her name in this episode because she is definitely operating outside the normal restraints of the X-Men. She's just lost two of the most important men in her life, so her rage factor is extremely high. Rogue decimates an army base, thinking that Trask or Gyrich is being protected there, and this particular base is one where General Thunderbolt Ross is in charge, so our first cameo is in the books for Episode 7. Meanwhile, Scott is trying to get more aid and help for Genosha, but the president is playing politics, and this leaves Scott very, very frustrated. But we still get the Blackbird and the X-Men touching down in Genosha to help. Throughout this, Jean suffers a lot of psychic backlash, and she's presuming it is from all the death and lost souls in Genosha, but I'm not sure that is the whole case. We get a little bit of time with Hank McCoy, who I think has been underutilized in this series thus far, and as we get a little bit more insight into the relationship he has with Trish Tilby. There are a few survivors to help on Genosha, but just like in the comics, one is found. It is Emma Frost, and this is where she first turns into her diamond form. Yes, this is taken directly from Cassandra Nova's origin story, so the writers are continuing to mine that for material, even though they seem to be leaving her out of the series, probably because she's set to be in a Deadpool Wolverine movie. Now, it is also here where my issues with the episode begin. Of course, they occur around Jubilee and Sunspot. Whoever has been writing for these two characters needs to take a cue from their fellow writers because it just gets a little bit out of left field here for me. Sunspot still has not revealed his mutant power to his family, and he is pressured by Jubilee to do so. To understand my issue with this, we have to accept that Sunspot's story is an allegory for the struggles of a young person who is yet to reveal their sexuality to their family, and I think that is a fair conclusion to make. Therefore, my first issue is with Jubilee. She is constantly pressuring Roberto to do something that he's not comfortable doing. I think it sends a bad message. I know they're playing it as supportive as possible, but this kind of decision to reveal the kind of information that Sunspot has kept hidden should be a personal decision, not one made out of peer pressure. I think it sends a terrible message. Again, that's just my opinion. You might have one different. I'd love to hear about it in the comment section below. Then we get our second terrible message when Sunspot actually tells his mother, who is not surprised and takes it very well. However, she talks about keeping it secret so the family business is not hurt. Again, we need to see this as an allegory of coming out. So my question is this: how many times are our children's sexuality brought up in third-party business dealings? This was maybe the stupidest insert in attempt to make a point that held zero logic and zero reasoning behind it. In business, for over 30 years, I've never brought up my children's lives, and their acceptance has never been a contingency upon making a business deal. So this is not how the world works. This was an absolutely stupid scene, and the way in which they are messaging through Sunspot is falling very short, which to me is a shame, because I think the message that they want to give is one that can resonate with a lot of fans and should be given a lot more care. And so I guess my issue is the sloppiness with which they're handling it. Now, thankfully, this scene ends and we get back to Rogue. Apparently, she has tracked down our second cameo, Steve Rogers. It's cool to see the Captain in action here, even if it is so brief. Rogue does treat him like crap, though, and she's still grieving, and I think Cap knows it. He's able to give her information about Gyrich and his location in Mexico City, which is where Rogue goes off to next. Now, we do see Rogue fly past the famous Angel of Mexico City to a compound that is more of a resort, as she puts it, than a jail. And for someone who spends a lot of time in Mexico City, it was just cool for me to see that. The guards at this compound are wearing uniforms with the letters OZT on them, so fans of the comics immediately know where this is going once they see those letters. Bastion is going to be behind the attacks, but we do not get him yet. OZT is Bastion's creation from the comics as well. It stands for Operation Zero Tolerance and is designed to eliminate all mutants. We do get Rogue taking everyone out again and then using her powers on Gyrich, but she gets nothing as Gyrich is able to resist. And we next see Rogue in a cemetery in Mexico City. Now, it must be the night of November 1st because there's the Day of the Dead celebration going on, the night when living ancestors spend the night in the cemetery celebrating dead relatives, and it's normally, typically, on that day and that evening into the next day. Rogue is comforted by Nightcrawler, and she finally breaks down and cries. The other X-Men are there to pick her up, and this is where we get the return of Bolivar Trask. He actually contacts the X-Men to warn them and have them come to Madripoor so they can understand what is going on. And this is when we get our first look at Bastion as we cut away to Gyrich recovering from being attacked by Rogue. He is a loose end at this point, so Bastion eliminates him. Our X-Men make their way to Madripoor, a city based on Hong Kong or Singapore. Now, Trask reveals to them a secret department within the UN that is Sentinel technology way beyond their timeline. He explains how he gave his DNA to activate Master Mold. He is depressed and does not want to be an Oppenheimer-type figure, as Wolverine puts it, and as Trask quotes the famous nuclear scientist. Trask, so depressed, tries to self-delete himself by jumping off the building, but is caught by Rogue, only to be thrown off by Rogue when he does not have the answers she wants. Now, some will say that this is out of character for Rogue, and I would say to those people that you don't quite understand how grief and loss can cause so much anger in one person. So to me, it is absolutely understandable that Rogue, as she says, took care of the guy responsible for thousands of deaths, including those she loved. But this is where we get swerved. Trask is under the command of Bastion, who he himself is a living Sentinel, a human-Sentinel hybrid, and is capable of turning other humans into Prime Sentinels, as he has done with Trask here. These Prime Sentinels are way more powerful than regular Sentinels, and we see this as Trask is basically wiping the floor with the X-Men with ease. Only with the arrival of our fourth reveal of the episode is Trask taken down. Cable returns to save his father, and this is the first time Cyclops and son Nathan, aka Cable, actually see each other. Cable even tells Jean Grey to get out of his head because she is not Madeline, his true mother. We then cut to Mr. Sinister and Bastion arguing over Bastion's plan. It is clear that Bastion is in control. He even shows Mr. Sinister feeds from an alien satellite with scenes from Episode 6 and the Shi'ar Empire. We then get our sixth and final reveal. Magneto is alive and is now Bastion's prisoner. With that, we end the episode. What we are left with now are two main villains, with a possible third in the Goblin Queen because we still don't know where she is. Gambit is dead, Magneto is alive, Jean is suffering through psychic convulsions, Trask is dead, Gyrich is dead, a new Sentinel program is up and running, OZT is up and running, Professor X is still not back yet, Storm is powered up but still not around, X-Men 97 is pulling on threads from multiple storylines from the comics and trying to weave them together, Apocalypse is still in the opening credits but not yet mentioned in the series, and we have 3 episodes left to get where we need to get to. Overall, most of episode 7, I think, was great. You already know where and why I don't like certain parts of it, but I think Rogue's character arc, along with the simmering anger bubbling up in Beast, Scott, Jean, and others, is a slow burn down a long fuse that is getting close to the end. And I think with episode 8, we'll begin to see the so-called endgame get started as the series begins to wrap up a lot of these plot threads. And that's what I think. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. How would you rate episode 7? Is Apocalypse still in play in your mind? And did you enjoy seeing Rogue with a little bit more edge? I know I did. So thank you for watching. And from south of the border, I'm still your reluctant gringo. Salute and a huevo.